Hello everyone, and welcome back to the fourth and final week of Mermay. Now, because this is the final week, the month of May has 31 days, and that means not every week broke down into 7 days like I thought. This video is in fact going to have 10 different mermaids, starting off with the color of Mimosa. Now, this was another color that I probably took a little too literally. I decided to take that bright orange color of Mimosa, and I actually put the mermaid into a glass of Mimosa. Now, this is the first time I've really explored drawing glasses, drawing beverages. I've never really done it before. I'm quite happy with the final result, but this was also the first time that I've drawn someone in a beverage glass. Either human, mermaid, fairy, any other fantasy creature. So this was a little bit more outside my comfort zone and a little bit more experimental, but it did turn out really well. I will say that the hardest part of this particular illustration wasn't just the mermaid and the glass. The hardest part for me was coloring the mimosa drink part as well as the glass overlay layer. I definitely know that I need to do some more studies on how food and beverages work, so this one unfortunately did kind of come just from my mind instead of out of a reference photo, which was my bad. Reference photos are your best friends. So that being said, it did take me a couple times to try and figure out how to color the liquid so that it looked like an actual beverage with the orange juice, with the champagne, with a little bit of the red syrup down at the bottom, and having it all form into a sort of gradient that you would see with this kind of beverage. As well, I wanted to kind of make it lineless because as much as I like things to fit in the style, it looks off to me when I have lines on a liquid like that. So I had to find a balance between lineless and lined between the character, the glass, and the beverage, and I actually wound up coloring in some of that line art below the initial beverage layer, just so that it kind of blended in a bit more and didn't stand out too harshly and actually looked like even the line art was behind or inside the liquid. As well, this was my first time drawing this particular kind of glass, so there was a little bit of experimentation in terms of how to shade, how to highlight, and even what kind of layer style I would put. Most of the blue for that glass was actually on an overlay layer so that it kind of had a transparency to it and added on top of the beverage as well as the mermaid. And then going in and making sure that all of the mermaid layers were cleaned up and behind the layers I needed. So for instance, everything that was actually inside the glass looks like it's inside the glass, everything inside the beverage looks like it's inside the beverage, etc., etc. Most of achieving that effect came from layer styles, from actually moving layers in front of or behind other layers, as well as just the particular way that I colored them. I am overall very happy with this particular drawing. I think it is the best one to come out of this whole Mermay, let alone just this week, so I hope you guys like it as well. Next up is the color of pistachio green. This was day 23, and I decided that I wanted to explore again on body styles. Now, for this one, I actually wound up doing one of my own characters for it. Her name is Alice, and I will admit that this color kind of got away from me a little bit. It's supposed to be a light pistachio green, as you can see from the color of my base sketch, which I did pick directly from the Pantone color. However, the way that I worked on this, I got so carried away that I added so many glow effects. She looks radioactive, which isn't a bad thing. I quite love how this one turned out, and it suits the character perfectly well, given she usually has a sort of radioactive power or color scheme behind her anyway. I'm just a little upset at myself that I got away from the pistachio color more than I should have, but that's not the point of this challenge, at least for me. The point is to have Pantone colors and monochromatic colors and create illustrations that expand on knowledge that I already have. Body styles, body skin tones, posing, and just monochromatic illustrations. So I'm very happy with how this one came out. I will admit, I think personally the weakest part of this character is the posing. I don't love how I posed her. I'm more happy with the coloring I did of her, the light greens, the glows, the contrast between the dark skin and the light hair, which has always been my favorite aspect of this character. And I just think that the way that I turned her into a mermaid suits her pretty well. I know that there's a lot of information in my head that isn't transferring well in this illustration or in this voiceover, because there are just story points about this character that I've pre-established in my own but I do hope that you like her. I hope that you like the illustration overall. And let me know down in the comments below if you prefer the matte colors over the glowy color effects of the different mermaids, or if there was a color just in general that was your favorite separate from the mermaids. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So like I said before, this character was one that was pre-established or pre-designed. I did not come up with this one on the top of my head, which is okay. This was a little bit of a comfort zone day for me. Glowy effects, character I've already made and love, but I'm still happy with the outcome. It's okay to have days that are more comfort zone-y than others. On that note, next day is day 24 with the color Cactus. It's a little bit more on that darker green end, still sticking with the greens. Now, given how dark I made the colors the day before by accident, I definitely wanted to go in a bit of a lighter tone this time. I also wanted to explore a different body type, give her a little bit of a chubby belly but a smaller chest. I know a lot of my chubbier mermaids have had larger chests as well, and I really wanted to try and mend that by putting a smaller chest on this one. Gave her a bubbly personality, bright features, bright face, and if that smile on her face makes you smile as well, please make sure to like, subscribe, and click the little bell. I try and upload every Saturday about noon. That way you'll know when the next one comes up, as I'm going to be starting more speed paints and more series in the future. Going back to the actual illustration on screen, I've moved on to the coloring as you can see, and I wanted to stick with the cactus color. Now, I'm aware that cacti can come in all sorts of forms, and I really just wanted to stick to the sturdy, stocky kind of cacti that you might see in the desert, but I wanted to make sure that she looked healthy, she looked happy. Cacti are known for storing water within their leaves, or within their trunks, or whatever the technical term is. I am not a scientist or biologist or any sort of plantologist, obviously. With that kind of terminology, you can know that. But I really wanted to try and capture that kind of simple, bright, rounded shape that a lot of cacti, at least the ones that you think of when you think of the word cactus, that's what I was going for with this character. Now, if I were to redo this illustration, which I might in the future just take these prompts and go word-based instead of color-based, I am a little disappointed in myself that I didn't think to add any sort of flowers on her, as I love when cacti get flowers. Desert flowers are some of the prettiest and prettiest smelling I ever seen. So if I ever redid this character, I would definitely want to add a flower, especially to the top of her bun, so it looks like the cacti flowers. But I'm not at all disappointed with how this one came out. I'm still very happy with it, especially the fact that I gave her a different body shape. Now, day 25 is the color Waterfall. I once again kind of went into my comfort zone. This one was actually one that I'd planned for a while. I have a character whose overall color scheme is usually this fun, bright teal color. Anyway, her colors are teal and purple. So when I first saw this color in the initial prompt list, I immediately knew I wanted to try and draw her with this color. Her name is Lexi, and she is an outgoing, petite little girl of a character. I don't know how else to word that. Please forgive me, my brain has stopped functioning today. But I really wanted to try and capture that bouncy energy that she always gives off, the way her hair is always kind of in a strange animated motion, the way she's always curving and looks in motion. I know I already said that. But that's just who she is. She is an outgoing, bubbly person, and so turning her into a mermaid was so much fun. Turning her into a pinup mermaid was so much fun because she's so dainty and petite. It felt like a great excuse to just explore a smaller body, which, while a little bit more cliche and commonplace in art, is not something I usually do. When I do these kinds of bodies, they're usually covered with a large sweater or large clothes, so you don't see the figure as well. And contrary to that, when I do draw really prominent figures, you can usually see the figure because they're very curvy and vivacious and out there. So drawing someone that was a little bit more on the petite side but still confident in herself, it was really fun, and it was just a good challenge for me to draw someone who's so confident in herself, being confident in herself. Does that make sense? I also have to say that it has been super fun throughout most of the challenge, creating my own characters as well as using my own characters that I've already made in these illustrations. Taking characters that I'm so used to drawing one specific way, or taking a character that I know usually has multiple colors, and then putting them into a single color palette or into a new kind of environment is really fun for me as a designer. So taking a character who's usually a fantasy character already and turning her into a different kind of fantasy character like this one is super fun, and I love how Lexi looks as a mermaid. I think she's super cute. The next color is the color called Hawaiian Ocean, at least that's the color it is in the prompt. It's such a vibrant, pretty blue that I was kind of off guard and I didn't really know what to do with it at first. I tried to look at the words and think, okay, what does this make me think of? And I really kind of wanted to go for a more relaxed pose, a little bit more of a relaxed feel. You know, the word Hawaiian really makes me think like a beach vacation, so I wanted to draw a mermaid that looked like she was relaxing somewhere. Maybe not at a beach, but you know, she was enjoying a nice vacation. The color didn't quite come into play as much as I would have liked. This was another off day for me. I wanted to try and focus on giving her a different hairstyle that I've given the last couple of mermaids, giving her a little bit of half up, half down hairdo. I did struggle with the colors because it's such a vibrant blue. I didn't really think it out as much as maybe I should have. I love trying to do the contrasting between the light and the dark so that it looks obviously different without the lines and with the lines. One of the last minute additions I did in this drawing that was not in the original sketch is actually the little bow that she's tying in her hair. Initially I was just going to have her hands up messing with her hair, but I couldn't quite figure out how to do it, so I decided to add in a little ribbon that would be an accent piece in that bright Hawaiian Ocean blue. This somewhat backfired on me a little bit because then I couldn't color her hair that color, because then you'd never differentiate the bow from the hair. And what I've been doing in a lot of these illustrations is having the hair a similar, or if not same color as the tail, which is usually the initial Pantone color from the prompt. So my workaround was I tried to make her hair kind of like the waves of the ocean, the other part of this prompt. So I gave the white sea foam the blue depth and had it start from top to bottom in the little gradient, so it kind of resembled the waves or the breaking of the waves on the beach. I'm not entirely sure if it worked. I'm quite happy with it. I definitely think there could be some improvement if I sat at it a bit longer and kind of thought about it a little bit more, but I will say I'm quite happy with this pose, the little over the shoulder peek, the little side boob. I think it is super cute and classy and pretty perfect for a pinup if I do say so myself. Coming up next is the color Sweet Lilac. There's a little preview at the beginning of this one, excuse my editing. However, this was a mermaid that I certainly felt a little lost on. I wanted to try and explore something that I hadn't explored much in this series of illustrations. This one and the prompt after this, I actually tried to explore different things that kind of run in a similar vein. If you can remember last week with one of my blue colors, specifically the color Serenity, I decided to take a little bit more of an alternative / punk character design on that color, and I decided to once again revisit that with this one, however accentuating the amount of piercings she has, because I realized I haven't done a lot of that. I've done a couple of nipple piercings, I've done like a couple of nose rings, but I've never really pushed it. So you'll see in this illustration there's actually about, give or take, 13 different piercings on her. She has nipple piercings on both breasts, she has a lip ring, a tongue piercing, a nose ring, a regular nose piercing, a belly button piercing, eyebrow piercing, and multiple ear piercings along with a piercing on her tail. Now, I know that's a lot, but I really just wanted to explore. I know plenty of people, and I've seen plenty of people with this many, if not more, piercings, and really, it looked great on her. I thought that it came together really nicely, and even though they're small on the finished product, I think they add a nice little pop of lightness compared to the overall dark tones of this color, because even though it is a light color in the initial Pantone color, it's the Sweet Lilac, which is her hair, I wanted to take the darker tones for her skin to make that hair stand out even more, give the shaved side a little bit more of an obvious appearance. And then all of the piercings are just a nice light contrast against her skin being that lilac and or white, because I did add a little bit of a glow effect on it. I'm guilty as charged. Please forgive any background noise. It is beginning to become summer, so there's a lot of people outside nowadays. But back to the illustration, I do think that it turned out really well. While the pose is more on the simple end, this day I wanted to focus more on the character design than the posing, since I'm starting to admittedly run out of poses. The amount of piercings I put on her, while maybe excessive in your mind, I think suit her really well. They're subtle, but they're cute and they're fun, and I think it kind of gives her a personality without needing to expand on that too much in the pose. Now, like I said, alongside Sweet Lilac, this color, Dusty Lavender, was another color where I wanted to explore something different. I mentioned last week in week 3 that I didn't do too many laying down poses, and this is unfortunately only one of 2. But it did turn out really well. I wanted to try and give something a bit more of a cliche pinup pose, a bedroom eyes, laying on her side, paint me like one of your French girls kind of pinup pose. I think it turned out really well. I'm quite proud of the body. I'm quite proud of the little rolls on her tummy and the way everything doesn't conform to traditional pinup. The boobs separate, they kind of flatten out, her hips are wide, but she's proud of it and she's flaunting it. And I even went so far as to give her a little body harness. Now, this is a little forewarning. This is purely decorational. I do not mean this in an overly sexual way. It is up to you if you think it looks sexy on her. I think it looks sexy on her, but more importantly, I thought this was a very decorative way of creating a character design and giving personality and adding to the confident look on her face without actually having to give her clothes or any sort of design. It was just something I wanted to try. Now, I will add on top of that it was surprisingly difficult to draw this kind of detail or accessory onto a mermaid. A lot of body harnesses usually wrap around something so that they are actually sturdy. Now, the part that wraps around the breasts looks about as normal as it would be on a human being. However, a human being has 2 legs, which means a lot of the time you have that harness going between the legs and around the thighs. Mermaids don't have that, and I'm not going to cut her tail in half so that this body harness can go through it. So I had to get a little bit creative in terms of imagining how it might wrap around and secure on her hips without actually being stopped by anything or sliding up. I did have a reference picture up for this one because I wanted to try and make it look accurate as much as this is a fantasy illustration, and I really wanted it to be decorative like I said before, hence why I gave her a bunch of little pearls hanging from the harness. I'm imagining if she were to be upright, they would hang down her chest, down her stomach, and down the sides of her tail, but since she's laying down, they kind of fall over. They follow the laws of gravity, and so you can see them hanging off to the side towards the ground, maybe a little bit more unceremoniously, but it shows that she's still a real person, or mer-person, I guess. As well, I was still kind of in the mindset of the illustration before, so I wanted to give her a little bit of an undercut. It's not super obvious in this illustration because of the way that her ears are. The downside to my version of mermaids having fins for ears means that some hairstyles are a tiny bit obscured, including this one, so I tried to make it more obvious with a color change. Don't think it worked, but that being said, I'm quite happy with the overall. The fact that I did a little laying down pose and it looks good. The fact that I did a body that I'm proud of. The color itself turned out really well, even though my coloring made it a little bit more pink than intended. It looks more like the Dusty Lavender is her body, but that's not true. Like I said before, I try and make the tail and the hair the base color of the illustration, which means the Dusty Lavender is that little bit more of a pink purple on her hair and her tails. But I think it turned out really good, and it was my first time drawing someone in a body harness, a very decorative body harness, might I add you. And while I know that it could be improved and it's not the best, it was my first ever attempt and I'm still very happy with it. I do think that if I had to choose a favorite just from this week, aside from Mimosa of course, it would be this one. I am so proud of it for experimenting, for trying something new, and for drawing something that most people would instantly think of when they think of sexy or pinup or even shirtless. This is a lot of default, and part of my personal challenge was to do all the other types of pinups that were cute and flirty and body confident. So doing one that was a little bit more traditional in terms of bedroom-esque or boudoir, it was definitely a fun challenge and I'm proud of it. Now, Dusty Lavender was day 7 for that week. However, like I said, things don't always split up the way I want them to, and instead of giving you a video with only 3 mermaids, I thought I would pack them down into one video. So here is mermaid number 8, Pink Lemonade. Now, like I said, I have been trying different body types. The last one was a little bit curvier. I've done a couple chubby girls before, but I realized chubby was the most I had done. I wanted to do one that was a little bit more on the fat scale. Now, again, tiny warning. I do not think being fat is a bad thing. I think as long as you're happy with yourself and you are healthy and you don't have any kind of weird complications that would require you to lose weight, I don't think there's a problem with that. You are awesome, and that's why I pushed myself to draw different kinds of body types. I simply use the word fat for this illustration because I don't have any other better word for it. If there is a better word, let me know down in the comments below, and I will apologize 1,000 times for this. But like I said, my brain is not working today. The only word I can think of is fat, and she is beautifully fat. Like I said before, this color is Pink Lemonade, and I really wanted to expand on that bubbly, warm, outgoing personality that I think of when I think of the color Pink Lemonade. Because what do I think of with Pink Lemonade? I think of a little bit of alcohol, a little bit of lemonade, which leads to summer, a little bit of fun. So that's what I did with her. I gave her a large body, I gave her big lips, I gave her fun hair, and I gave her a cute little smile. She knows what she looks like, and she's proud of it, she loves it, and I love her. I'm sorry this is turning into a mini tiny rant because I honestly am running out of things to say about her. I think one of the hardest parts for me is I'm so used to drawing the initial skeleton underneath a mermaid or a person that I will admit it kind of threw me off with the posing that I couldn't see the back part of her behind her arm. You can see the front where the chest connects to the stomach, goes into the hips, and you can see the back where the hips come out from the back or the middle. But it's very obscured, and it threw me off a little. It still looks good, and I think it adds to that larger frame that I was going for, but I have to admit that it threw me off big time just because I'm so not used to that kind of obscure drawing style. I'm not used to the posing covering things, and that is a weakness of mine. It's part of why some of my outfits are simple, is because it's easy to see the figure behind them in those outfits. But I'm quite happy with this one. I'm proud of myself for branching off on this body type, and I hope you guys liked it as well. Now, day 30 is the color Raspberry. This is the last official prompt of the Pantone Mermay list, which is the one I was using for this whole month of Mermay, if I forgot to mention that before, or if you're just joining us. For this one, I did want to try and do something simple, a little different. It was loosely based off of one of my characters as well, but I changed the design to fit the color a little bit better. And this character was initially based off of myself as well. That's why you can see her holding a pencil. Sorry, I don't know why I feel so awkward about that. That's not a bad thing. This is a color that I was excited to do from the beginning. It's such a bright borderline red. I know it's technically a pink, but it looks red, and whatever color you think it looks like, it is a raspberry color. It's as simple as that. I don't know how else to describe it. It's such a bright, fun color that I really kind of wanted to enjoy having fun with it. I wanted to have the brightness pop out. I wanted to have it a little bit more playful, and like the last ones, maybe a little bit more cliche pinup. You know, framing the breasts, having the butt sticking out. It's an angle and a pose I don't do very often. It's a very feminine, over-the-top pose that I definitely need to work on my proportioning for. I know that the waist does not work properly. There's definitely some anatomical errors in this one that I need to practice. This goes back to just practice, which is, even for me, something I have to do all the time. But I'm still proud of it. I didn't turn out awful, which is always a risk when you start something new. And despite there being a few anatomical errors, the pose is readable. You know what's going on, you can tell what's happening, and given this is the 30th day of drawing mermaids, this is the 30th illustration of a mermaid, I think I can get a little bit of a credit for maybe not being at the top of my game after 30 days. I will say I'm glad that I still managed to stick with my schedule, that I managed to get out even 30 days, and the fact that they all look different. This one has a hairstyle that I actually have, the blunt bangs a little bit longer, and she looks different than the others, which is something that, as a character designer, is something I'm always striving for, even if I know I'm not the best at it yet. As mentioned before, day 30 was technically the last official prompt, but I decided, you know what? Screw it, I'm gonna celebrate with one more self-indulgent drawing, which I really didn't need to do. Instead of taking a day off, I drew this day. Now, since I was working with the promptless Pantone Mermay, which had a single color every day, I decided what better way to finish off 31 days than to draw a mermaid with more than one color in it, because by God, have I missed color throughout this challenge. I've still been using color. It's not like I've done black and white. Those challenges are a lot harder for me because I live off color. I love color. But sticking to a single color for a whole illustration is very difficult for me. That was part of why I chose to do this challenge. So being able to go back into my comfort zone and explore multiple colors in a single drawing as the success page or the finished final drawing for the whole month just felt good. It felt relaxing. It felt like a reward, which I guess is the whole point of doing these challenges sometimes. But I felt bad for just wanting to do a rainbow or multicolored mermaid, so what I wound up doing was going back to the initial prompt list and color picking a select few colors out of the prompt list and using them in this mermaid, so she still technically counts as a Pantone mermaid, she's just not monochromatic. A little bit of a cheat, I know, but there was no prompt for this day, so sue me. Anyway, the colors that I wound up picking for this one happened to be day 8, Lemon Zest, day 11, Rose Quartz, day 30, Raspberry, and I chose to do day 26, Hawaiian Ocean, a little bit blue, a little bit purple, a little bit yellow, and a little bit of a skin tone color because, as you saw in the initial sketch, I tried a yellow skin tone to try and make it more colorful, and it just wasn't working. It wasn't fitting the kind of image I had in my head. Even if it wasn't a very clear image, the yellow skin tone was not working for me. And I didn't feel like trying a different color. I just thought I'd go back to my roots and make a little bit more of a traditional looking mermaid. Now, I did not purposely combine the yellow hair with the almost skin tone color skin. Like, that was as intentional as it might be just because I put them there. It was not I plan to put these two colors together in this spot to make her look like a cute little blonde mermaid, but I'm happy with it. I like how she turned out. I think she is so over the top cute, even if she kind of looks like a cheerleader. I also gave her a cute little success postcard, sign, whatever you want to call it, in her hands, so while it's still a pinup pose, it's my little success to me. That being said, we have reached the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know which mermaid was your favorite out of the entire series down in the comment below, and I will look forward to seeing you guys next week. I hope you stay safe. Bye!